Mom screamed at Timi to leave and never come back, so I packed up and left weeks later. Then Dad asked why I'd stopped paying the mortgage, and what I told him completely shut them down. Can you imagine being told to leave your childhood home and never come back, only to realize later that you'd been secretly paying its mortgage for 3 whole years? I'm Heidi, and at 32, a Sunday family dinner turned into a gut-wrenching moment I truly never saw coming. What my mother didn't know when she screamed at me to get out was the secret I'd been keeping. The utter disbelief on my dad, Richard's, face weeks later, when the bank notices started arriving, is a picture I'll never forget. Growing up in the Hamilton household was like walking on eggshells, especially around my mother, Gloria. From my earliest memories, her expectations for me were impossibly high, almost designed for me to fail. My dad, Richard, was the peacemaker. He'd slip into my room after one of Mom's storms, assuring me everything would be okay. But he never actually stood up to her. He just smoothed things over until the next explosion. My older siblings, Justin and Elizabeth, escaped to college and rarely looked back. That left me, the youngest, to absorb the full force of my mother's critical nature. Every achievement was measured against an invisible, ever-shifting standard. 5 A's and 1 B on a report card? She'd laser focus on the B. What happened here? Did you not study enough? Elizabeth never got anything lower than an A-. The comparisons were constant and crushing. My choice in friends, my clothes, my appearance, all battlegrounds. That Olivia girl seems shallow. And why are you wearing those jeans? They make you look heavier. Comments about my body started when I was 12 and never stopped. The worst fights were about my future. When I expressed interest in finance, my mother scoffed. Women don't get taken seriously in that field. You should choose something practical like nursing. But finance fascinated me, the way numbers could tell stories. So I secretly applied to business programs, defying her. I graduated with honors from Cornell, but even that wasn't Harvard, so it still fell short of her expectations. Still, I landed a job at a prestigious firm and worked my way up to senior financial advisor by 28. My clients trusted me, my bosses valued me. But at family gatherings, my mother would introduce me with, "This is Heidi. She works with money," as if my career was just a little hobby, not worth explaining. Then, 3 years ago, everything changed. My father, at 59, was laid off. The severance was generous, but not infinite. My mother flat out refused to downsize their lifestyle or get a job herself. At my age, who would hire me? And we cannot leave this house. What would people think? I stumbled upon their financial mess accidentally. I found my dad late one night, head in his hands, surrounded by bills. He broke down, admitting they were 3 months behind on the mortgage. Without telling them, I called their mortgage company the next day. I set up automatic payments of $2,200 a month from my personal account. It was a significant chunk of my income, but I had savings and I lived modestly. I could afford it, and the thought of them losing their home, it was unbearable. I never told them what I had done. My dad eventually found part-time work, which he claimed covered their expenses, and I pretended to believe him. But looking back, the signs were everywhere. My mother's new credit cards, my dad's evasive answers, the increasing tension. Their 5-bedroom colonial, remodeled kitchen, the formal dining room where we'd had so many holiday meals. My old bedroom remained a time capsule. Despite the discomfort, the house held memories, height marks on the doorframe, a dent in the living room wall from Justin's baseball. It was harder to let go of than I expected. I kept visiting, twice a month, despite the knot in my stomach every time I turned onto their street. These visits were mostly for my dad. After losing his job, his confidence had crumbled. I worried about his mental health, especially as the liquor bottles in their cabinet seemed to empty faster. My mother's criticism grew more barbed. I brought her favorite lasagna. She took one bite and asked if I'd used low-fat cheese because she could taste the difference, and not in a good way. If I offered to clean up, she'd follow behind me, rewashing dishes, sighing loudly. My dad would retreat, staring at his plate or suddenly needing to check the garage. The once confident man now flinched when my mother's voice rose. He started keeping a flask in his jacket. I tried everything to rebuild a connection. Cashmere scarves, first edition novels, expensive lunches, a $600 mother-daughter spa day. She complained about every single thing. The massage was too hard. My back is going to be bruised. That facial just made my rosacea worse. Nothing worked. Every gesture was met with suspicion. Why are you being so nice all of a sudden? What do you want? She'd ask, as if kindness could only be transactional. My best friend, Sophia, saw through my forced cheerfulness. One night, over wine, I finally broke down, confessing everything, including the secret mortgage payments. Heidi, honey, this is not normal or healthy, Sophia said, refilling my glass. You're 32, successful, brilliant, and beautiful. And you're being emotionally abused by your mother while bankrolling their lifestyle. They're my parents. I protested weakly. What am I supposed to do? Let them lose their house. Maybe they should lose the house, Sophia countered. Maybe they need a reality check. Your mom refuses to work, they won't downsize, and you're sacrificing your own financial future. Where are your boundaries? I had no answer. In our family, boundaries were selfish, especially from children. My mother interpreted honor thy father and mother as do whatever we say without question. The cultural pressure was immense too. In our community, adult children were expected to care for aging parents. The fact that my parents were only in their early 60s and perfectly capable of supporting themselves with adjustments seemed irrelevant. So, I continued the visits, the payments, the emotional gymnastics. I started having panic attacks the night before seeing them, my chest tightening until I could barely breathe. My therapist suggested reducing contact, but the guilt was overwhelming. What kind of daughter would I be? What I didn't fully recognize then was how my mother's resentment had grown alongside my success. Each promotion, each milestone, deepened her bitterness. She had given up a promising career in real estate to raise us, a fact she frequently reminded us of. Seeing me thrive, unmarried and child-free by choice, contradicted everything she'd been taught about a woman's worth. When are you going to settle down? Became her constant refrain. Careers are nice, but family is what matters in the end. The irony that she seemed to actively dislike her own family was apparently lost on her. The final warning came 2 weeks before everything fell apart. I'd stopped by unannounced one Tuesday bringing dinner. As I let myself in, I heard her voice from the kitchen. She thinks she's so special with her fancy job and her fancy apartment, little Miss Perfect always showing off. Does she think we don't see right through her? My father's tired voice responded, Gloria, please. She's just trying to help. We don't need her help, my mother snapped. We were fine before she started interfering. I raised her better than this, to be so condescending. I froze, the bag of food growing heavy. I backed away silently, left without them ever knowing I had been there. I sat in my car shaking before driving home. That night, I cried to Sophia until my throat was raw. Next time will be different, I promised myself, as I had countless times. But old habits die hard, and the fear of confrontation had been conditioned into me since childhood. I didn't know then that next time would be the breaking point for all of us. My father's 60th birthday fell on a Saturday in April. Despite my anxiety, I decided to go home. I brought an overnight bag and a carefully wrapped Rolex I'd spent months saving for, the exact model he'd admired years ago. The tension was palpable. My mother's stiff hug was followed by an immediate comment on my hair. Oh, you cut it again. It was finally getting to a nice length. I'd actually grown it out for months. I'd made reservations at his favorite steakhouse, but my mother vetoed it. I already made his favorite pot roast. No need to waste money. We ate at home, at the formal dining table. The conversation was stilted. My dad drank 4 glasses of wine and grew quieter. When it was time for presents, I nervously handed him the blue gift box. His expression when he saw the watch was everything I'd hoped for: surprise, delight, disbelief. Heidi, this is... I cannot accept this. It's too much, he stammered, even as he turned it over in his hands. Of course, you can, I insisted. You deserve it, Dad. Happy birthday. My mother's face went rigid. How much did that cost? She asked sharply. Gloria, my father warned, but she ignored him. Must be nice to have so much disposable income. Meanwhile, we're counting pennies for groceries. The evening deteriorated from there. I went to bed early, texting Sophia. Remind me why I do this to myself. Her response, because you're a good person who loves her dad. Hang in there. Call if you need me. The next morning, I woke early to make coffee. The house was quiet. As I waited for the coffee to brew, I heard their voices from the study. The door was partially open. We cannot keep doing this, Gloria, my father was saying. The credit cards are maxed out. The property taxes are due next month. We have to tell her. Tell her what? My mother snapped. That we're failing? That's exactly what she wants to hear so she can swoop in and play savior. My heart pounded. They were in worse shape than I'd thought. And my father had been hiding it from me, despite my help with the mortgage. When they came into the kitchen, I had made a decision. I would offer to help them create a financial plan. It was literally my job to help people in financial crisis. Mom, Dad, I began, once we were seated. I couldn't help overhearing some of your conversation. I know things have been tight, and I want to help. My mother's face went white, then red. You were eavesdropping on us? No, I was in the kitchen. Your voice is carried. I took a deep breath. Look, financial planning is what I do professionally. Let me help you create a budget. Maybe look at refinancing options. So now we need your professional help? My mother's voice took on that dangerous edge. You think we're incompetent? That we can't manage our own affairs? That is not what I said. I try to keep my voice calm. But it sounds like things are serious, and I have resources and knowledge that could help. Of course, you do, she said sarcastically. Little Miss Perfect with all the answers. You have no idea what the real world is like. You've had everything handed to you. The unfairness of that statement stunned me. I'd worked through college, paid off loans, budgeted carefully. Nothing had been handed to me but criticism. Mom, that is not true, and you know it, I said, my voice stronger than I expected. I have worked incredibly hard for everything I have, and I'm just trying to help. We don't need your help, she snapped. And we certainly don't need your judgment. It's not judgment, it's concern. I insisted. Dad just said you're underwater financially. The property taxes are due. Your credit cards are maxed out. These are serious problems. Problems that are none of your business, she ceded. This is between your father and me. My father sat silently, staring into his coffee cup. His new Rolex gleamed, an ironic symbol of an illusion. Dad, I said softly. Please say something. He looked up, his eyes tired. Your mother is upset, Heidi. Maybe we should discuss this another time. That was when something broke inside me. After 3 years of paying their mortgage, after decades of walking on eggshells, after endless criticism and emotional manipulation, I was done being the family punching bag. There won't be another time, I said, my voice shaking. This pattern never changes. Mom attacks, Dad enables, and I'm supposed to take it because we're family. Well, I'm done. My mother stood up so quickly her chair tipped backward. How dare you speak to us like that in our own home, after everything we've done for you? What exactly have you done for me, Mom? I shot back. Made me feel inadequate at every turn? Criticized my appearance, my career, my life choices? Taken financial support without acknowledgement or gratitude? Her face contorted with rage. Financial support? What are you talking about? The occasional dinner out? The birthday gifts? Do you want a medal for doing the bare minimum a daughter should do? The bare minimum is exactly what I've gotten from you emotionally my entire life, I said, and immediately regretted the honesty. It was like throwing gasoline on a fire. My mother exploded, listing every perceived failure, every disappointment. But something had changed in me. For the first time, I heard her words not as truth, but as the desperate lashing out of someone who couldn't face her own unhappiness. It still hurt, but differently, like an old wound being prodded, not a fresh cut. I'm not doing this anymore, I said quietly, standing up. I'm going to pack my bag and go home. Running away as usual? She sneered. Can't handle the truth? The truth is that you're angry and bitter, and you're taking it out on me because I'm a safe target, I said. The truth is that I have been paying your mortgage for 3 years without telling you, because I knew you would react exactly like this, making it about your pride instead of practical solutions. The room went silent. My father's face drained of color. My mother's mouth opened and closed without sound. Then she found her voice, and it was ice cold. Get out. Mom, my father started, but she cut him off. Get out of my house, she repeated. Get out and never come back. If you think we are such burdens, such failures, then you are free of us. Go live your perfect little life and leave us alone. I looked at my father, searching for any sign that he would stand up for me. He looked away. Okay, I said simply. I walked upstairs, packed my bag with mechanical movements, and came back down. My mother had moved to the living room window, her back to me. My father stood helplessly in the hallway. Heidi, she doesn't mean it, he whispered. Give her time to calm down. She means it, I said. And for once, I'm going to take her at her word. I walked out the front door, closing it quietly behind me. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror at the house where I had grown up, never suspecting it would be the last time I saw it as someone welcomed there. The 40-minute drive home passed in a blur. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. I didn't cry, didn't scream. Just drove, numb and hollow. When I arrived, I sat in my parked car for almost an hour. Finally, Sophia's text broke the trance. How's the birthday weekend going? Surviving. I called her immediately. My voice was steady as I recounted what happened, until I reached my mother's final words. She told me to get out and never come back, I said. Then the tears came, hot and relentless. I just left, Sophia. Where are you now? She asked, concern evident. In my car outside my building. I'm coming over. Don't move. 20 minutes later, she arrived with wine and deli food. She took one look at me and slid into the passenger seat. First hug, then food, then wine. Then we figure this out, she said, pulling me into her arms. I spent that night on Sophia's sofa. The next day, a Sunday, and she called in sick to her job on Monday to stay with me. By Tuesday, I had to return to work, barely functional, my professional mask firmly in place, but inside, I was unraveling. My father called several times that first week. I let each call go to voicemail. His messages were vague. Please call me back, Heidi. We need to talk. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just a request for me to once again be the bigger person. There were no calls from my mother. After 10 days of emotional limbo, I made an appointment with a financial advisor colleague. I'd been paying $2,200 monthly for 3 years, nearly $80,000. Money I could have put toward my own home, my retirement. Legally, you have no obligation to continue these payments, Diane advised. The mortgage is in their names. You're not a cosigner. You've been making a gift, essentially. What will happen if I stop? I asked. They'll receive notices of non-payment. Eventually, if they can't make the payments, foreclosure proceedings could begin. But Heidi, that's not your responsibility. I decided to stop the automatic payments immediately. It was terrifying and liberating, like cutting a cord that had both connected and constrained me. The next step was finding my own place. With the mortgage payments off my budget, I could afford to look at condos and small houses I'd previously considered out of reach. 2 weeks after the blow-up, I put a deposit on a sunlit 2-bedroom condo. Bay windows, hardwood floors, and most importantly, it was mine. No one could tell me to get out. During this time, I also started seeing a therapist, Dr. Martinez. What you are describing sounds like a lifetime of emotional abuse, she said in our first session. Your mother exhibits classic narcissistic behaviors, and your father is what we call an enabler. But she's not always terrible, I protested weakly. Sometimes she can be loving, especially when I'm doing exactly what she wants. That's part of the cycle of abuse, Dr. Martinez explained. The periods of apparent normalcy keep you hoping things will change. But has the fundamental dynamic ever really changed? I had to admit it hadn't. The good periods were just lulls between storms. Through therapy, I began to recognize patterns, how my mother created crises to pull me back when I sought independence, how she undermined my confidence, how she'd pit family members against each other. What about the mortgage payments? I asked. Was I enabling them? Your intention was to help, she considered. But keeping it secret did prevent them from facing reality. It allowed your father to avoid taking necessary action and your mother to maintain denial. So, I was wrong to help. I asked, the thought painful. Not wrong. You acted out of love and concern. But sometimes helping can hurt in the long run. True help would have been working with them to develop financial independence, not creating financial dependence. The hardest part was learning to sit with guilt without acting on it. When I thought about my parents losing their home, my instinct was to rescue them, to sacrifice my own well-being. Dr. Martinez helped me see this as a conditioned response. Your parents are adults who made their own choices. Your father chose not to find adequate employment. Your mother chose not to work or adjust their lifestyle. These were choices, not circumstances thrust upon them. Gradually, the panic attacks subsided. I slept through the night. I stopped checking my phone constantly. I began to embrace the possibility that life could be different. I threw myself into making my new condo a home. I painted the walls colors my mother would have hated. I bought furniture that suited my taste. I created a home office for my personal financial projects. Still, there was a lingering sadness. Despite everything, I loved my parents. I missed the father who taught me to ride a bike, who slipped me extra allowance, who was proud of me. I even missed the mother who, in rare moments, would share stories or laugh genuinely. But I couldn't miss them enough to destroy myself in the process of loving them. That was the boundary I was finally learning to set. Exactly 3 weeks and 2 days after I walked out, my phone rang with my father's number. I was alone in my office. I took a deep breath and answered. Hello, Dad. Heidi, he sounded relieved. How are you, sweetheart? The casual normalcy was jarring. I'm okay. How are you? Oh, getting by. There was an awkward pause. We've missed you at Sunday dinners. I said nothing. Your mother has been asking about you, he continued, which I knew was a lie. Has she? I kept my voice neutral. He cleared his throat. Well, you know how she is. She has her pride, but I know she regrets what happened. Did she say that? Not in those exact words, no, but I know she does. My heart sank. Nothing had changed. He was still making excuses for her, still expecting me to accept the unacceptable. Dad, why are you calling? I asked directly. Can a father not call his daughter just to check in? He attempted a light tone that fell flat. After 3 weeks of silence, following Mom throwing me out of the house? No, that's not just checking in. He sighed. Heidi, your mother was upset. She said things she didn't mean. You know how she gets when she feels backed into a corner. I do know, I agreed. I've known my entire life. That doesn't make it okay. No one is saying it's okay, he backpedaled. But family is family. We have to forgive each other. Forgiveness requires acknowledgement and change, Dad. Has Mom acknowledged what she did? Has anything changed? The silence on the other end told me everything. I thought so, I said softly. She's your mother, Heidi. She loves you in her way. Her way is hurting me. It always has. Another long pause. I could hear him gathering his courage for what I now realized was the real purpose of his call. There's something else, he finally said. Did you know the bank sent us a notice about the mortgage? My heart began to race. What kind of notice? A late payment notice, then another. They're threatening to begin foreclosure proceedings if we don't catch up. I don't understand it. The payments have always gone through automatically. Have they? I asked. Yes, for the past 3 years. Ever since. He trailed off, and I could hear the moment realization dawned. Heidi, what did you mean when you said you had been paying our mortgage? The moment of truth had arrived. Part of me wanted to deflect, to protect him. But I was done with secrets and enabling. I meant exactly what I said, Dad. I've been making your mortgage payments, $200 every month for the past 3 years. That's why they were always on time, regardless of your financial situation. The silence that followed was deafening. That's not possible, he finally said, his voice faint. How? You never looked at the payment details, did you? The bank statement just showed the payment was received. You assumed it was coming from your accounts. But why would you? How could you afford, he stammered. I make good money, Dad. The money you and Mom dismiss as my fancy job. I lived in a smaller apartment than I could afford. Drove an older car. Limited my expenses so I could help you keep your home. Because I loved you and couldn't bear to see you lose everything. Why did you not tell us? There was pain in his voice now. because I knew Mom would react exactly as she did when I tried to help openly. She would see it as an attack on her pride, on your capabilities, instead of what it was, a daughter loving her parents. 3 years, he repeated, the enormity of it sinking in. That is over 70, 000, 70, 000, 79, 200 to be exact, I confirmed. Heidi, I had no idea. I told your mother I had found freelance consulting work that was covering our expenses. I was too ashamed to admit I was stocking shelves at 60 years old. The admission broke my heart. There is no shame in honest work, Dad. The shame is in not facing reality. Does this mean? Have you stopped the payments? He asked, his voice small. Yes, I said simply. When Mom told me to get out and never come back, I took her at her word. All of it. But the house, he began, is not my responsibility, I finished firmly. It never was. You and Mom need to make some hard decisions now. Sell the house you can't afford. Get jobs that cover your actual expenses. Create a sustainable retirement plan. All things I offered to help with before Mom threw me out. She will never agree to sell, he said, panic edging into his voice. Then she needs to get a job, or you need to find better paying work, or both. But Dad, I cannot keep setting myself on fire to keep you warm. I understand, he said, though I wasn't sure he did. What you did for us. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything. But I do need you to understand that things have to change. I'm not coming back to the old dynamic. I'm not going to be the family scapegoat anymore. Of course not, he agreed quickly. I will talk to your mother. I will make her understand. I almost laughed. Good luck with that. Could we meet to talk about all this in person? He asked hopefully. I considered refusing. But I also knew that written boundaries were clearer than unspoken ones. Not at the house, I said firmly. I will meet you at Riverside Cafe on Thursday at noon. Just you, not Mom. I'm not ready to see her yet. He agreed quickly, thanking me repeatedly. After the call, I sat at my desk, shaking. I had finally told the truth, and the world had not ended. In fact, for the first time in years, I felt like I could finally breathe. I arrived at Riverside Cafe 20 minutes early on Thursday. I had prepared for this meeting like an important client presentation. Dr. Martinez and I had role-played scenarios. I had written down my boundaries. Remember, you are not responsible for their emotions or reactions, she'd advised. You are only responsible for communicating your own needs and limits with clarity. My father arrived exactly on time, looking like he'd aged years. His shoulders were hunched, his face gaunt. The Rolex was conspicuously absent. Heidi, he said with visible relief. Thank you for meeting me. I nodded, gesturing to the chair. We ordered coffee, and an uncomfortable silence fell. How have you been? He asked tentatively. I have been reflecting a lot, I said, sidestepping the politeness. On our family dynamics, on my role in them. On what I want moving forward. He nodded, looking at his coffee. I have been doing some thinking too. Tell me, I encouraged. He took a deep breath. I want to start by saying I am sorry. Not just for what happened that day, but for years of not protecting you from your mother's anger, for allowing you to become her target, for taking your support without acknowledgement. It was more self-awareness than I'd expected, and it momentarily threw me off balance. Thank you for saying that, I managed. After we spoke on the phone, I went through our bank records, he continued. I saw the truth. For 3 years, you have been carrying us while I pretended everything was fine. He looked up, his eyes wet. I feel ashamed, Heidi. Deeply ashamed. I didn't tell you about the payments to make you feel ashamed, I said. I did it because I love you and wanted to help. I know that makes it worse somehow. He wiped at his eyes. A father should provide for his children, not the other way around. At least not when the parents are still able-bodied. It's not about gender roles, Dad. It's about honesty and reciprocity. I would have gladly helped you if you had been honest about your situation, and if that help had been met with gratitude instead of hostility. He nodded, accepting this. Your mother and I have had some difficult conversations since your call. I can imagine, I said dryly. She didn't believe me at first about the mortgage payments. She accused me of making it up to manipulate her. He sighed. I had to show her the bank statements, the dates of the payments, the account number. And she cried, he said simply. I haven't seen your mother cry in years. I wasn't sure how to feel. Did she say anything about how she treated me? I asked. He hesitated. She is struggling with that part. She feels humiliated, which makes it hard for her to acknowledge her behavior. Her humiliation does not erase my hurt, I said firmly. No, it does not, he agreed. Which is why I asked her to come here today. To apologize to you herself. My heart jumped. You what? I told you I wasn't ready to see her. I know, and I'm sorry, but I thought if you could just hear her out. The cafe door opened then, and my mother walked in. She spotted us immediately. I felt like I couldn't breathe. You ambushed me, I whispered to my father, low and angry. I'm sorry, he repeated helplessly. I thought it would be better this way. My mother reached our table, standing awkwardly. She looked different, smaller somehow. Her normally perfect hair was pulled back, minimal makeup. Like my father, she seemed to have aged rapidly. Hello, Heidi, she said, her voice uncharacteristically subdued. I didn't invite her to sit. Dad told me you were coming despite my explicit request to meet with him alone. She flinched. Yes, I needed to see you. Why? She glanced at my father, who nodded encouragingly. May I sit down? I considered refusing, but causing a scene would make it worse. Fine. She took the third chair, perching on the edge. We sat in tense silence until the server returned. She asked for water, her voice barely audible. After the server left, she took a deep breath. Your father showed me the bank records about the mortgage payments. I said nothing. I didn't know, she continued. All this time, I thought we were managing. I thought Richard's freelance work was covering our expenses. I had no idea you were. She trailed off. Paying your mortgage, supporting you, being the adult in the relationship. I supplied coldly. She flinched again. Yes. Would it have mattered if you had known? Would you have treated me any better? Her eyes widened at my directness. I don't know. I would like to think so. At least it was honest. Well, now you know, and now it has stopped. Yes, she said quietly. The bank has given us 30 days to catch up, or they will begin foreclosure. That's not my problem anymore, I said, the words feeling both cruel and necessary. No, it is not, she agreed, surprising me. We are looking at options. Richard has applied for better-paying jobs. I have an interview tomorrow at a real estate office as a receptionist. This was unexpected. My mother hadn't worked since before I was born. That's a start, I acknowledged, but it won't be enough to keep the house. I know, she said, and there was defeat in her voice. We have contacted a realtor. She is coming next week to assess the property. I looked at my father, who nodded confirmation. It is the only sensible option, he said. We should have done it 3 years ago. Yes, you should have, I agreed. My mother twisted her hands in her lap. Heidi, I know an apology is not enough. What I said to you that day, and many days before it, there is no excuse. No, there is not, I said, not ready to make this easy. I was cruel to you. I have been cruel to you for years. Her voice broke. I told myself it was for your own good, that I was pushing you to be your best. But the truth is, I was jealous. This admission stunned me. I gave up my career to raise you children. It was what women of my generation were expected to do. I don't regret having you, but I regret losing myself in the process. And when you became so successful, so independent, doing exactly what I had given up. She shook her head. It was easier to criticize you than to face my own regrets. It was the most self-aware thing I had ever heard her say. Part of me wanted to embrace this moment, to rush toward reconciliation. But the wiser part, the part working with Dr. Martinez, knew that one moment of clarity didn't undo decades of damage. I appreciate your honesty, I said carefully. But I need you to understand that our relationship cannot go back to what it was. I will not be your emotional punching bag anymore. I will not sacrifice my financial security for your comfort. I will not accept criticism disguised as concern. I understand, she said quietly. Do you? Because these are non-negotiable boundaries for me now. If you cannot respect them, then we will not have a relationship at all. My father reached across the table, but stopped short of touching my hand. We want to do better, Heidi. Both of us. We want to rebuild what we have broken if you will give us that chance. I looked between them, these flawed parents of mine. I cannot make any promises right now. I am still processing everything that happened, not just that day, but throughout my life. I need time and space. Of course, my father said quickly. Whatever you need. And I want you both to consider therapy, I added. Individually and as a couple. There are issues here that go beyond money. My mother's mouth tightened reflexively, but she nodded. If that is what it takes. It's a start, I said. As for the house situation, I cannot and will not resume payments, but I can help you create a financial plan for downsizing. I can connect you with resources for job searching. I can advise you on retirement options. That is what I can offer. That is more than we deserve, my father said softly. It is not about deserving, I replied. It is about what I am willing and able to give while maintaining my own well-being. We talked for another hour, more practically now, about house values, my father's resume, what size home they could afford. It was the most adult conversation we'd ever had, no emotional manipulation, no tears, no guilt trips. As we prepared to leave, my mother hesitated. Would it be all right if I called you? Just to check in occasionally. Text first, I said. Ask if I have time to talk. Respect if I say not right now. She nodded. I will. We parted without hugs or promises, just a tentative acknowledgement that something new might be possible, even if the old was irrevocably gone. As I drove home, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. Not healed, not whole, but moving in the right direction. For the first time, I had stood firm in my truth and my worth, and the world had not ended. In fact, it felt like it might finally be beginning. 6 months can change everything or nothing at all. In my case, it changed almost everything. My new condo became truly mine. I painted an accent wall that bright teal I'd always wanted. I adopted a cat, Leo, a dignified orange tabby who greeted me at the door each evening. My career flourished. I was promoted to senior advisor with my own team, a substantial raise and increased flexibility. Dr. Martinez and I continued our sessions, gradually reducing them. The panic attacks stopped. The nightmares faded. The constant hum of anxiety quieted. You have done remarkable work, she told me. Many people spend years trying to break free from toxic family patterns. You have made tremendous progress in a relatively short time. It doesn't feel short, I admitted. It feels like the longest 6 months of my life. Growth is painful, she agreed. But you haven't just survived this period, you have transformed through it. My relationship with my parents evolved slowly. My father found a sales manager position at a smaller company, making about 60% of his previous salary, but with less stress and more appreciation. He seemed genuinely happier. More surprisingly, my mother not only took the receptionist job but excelled at it. Within 3 months, they offered to pay for her to get her real estate license. At 63, she was embarking on the career she'd abandoned 40 years earlier. The younger agents asked me for advice, she told me during one of our now regular Sunday phone calls. They say clients trust me because I have life experience. The pride in her voice was something new, something earned rather than manufactured. It suited her. They sold the Colonial in the suburbs, making enough profit to pay off their debt and put a down payment on a 2-bedroom townhouse closer to the city. It was a third of the size of their previous home, but required far less maintenance and was within their new budget. I don't miss the big house as much as I thought I would, my father confessed over lunch one day. All those rooms we never used, all that stuff we never needed. It feels good to simplify. The most significant change, though, was that my mother began seeing a therapist of her own. She made the decision after breaking down at work when a client resembling me came in with her young daughter. I suddenly saw us, you and me, as we were when you were little, she explained, before I became so critical, when you still looked at me with complete trust, and I realized how much I had destroyed. Her therapist diagnosed her with narcissistic tendencies rooted in her own childhood trauma, a pattern she had unwittingly perpetuated. There were sessions after which she would call me, voice raw from crying, to apologize for specific incidents from my childhood. I accepted these apologies cautiously, neither rushing to forgive nor holding on to resentment. Dr. Martinez helped me understand that forgiveness was a process, primarily for my own peace. Our new relationship was built on clearer communication and firmer boundaries. I visited them in their new home once a month, no more. We spoke on the phone weekly, but I felt free to end calls that became negative or draining. I no longer automatically said yes. I no longer felt responsible for their happiness or security. The strange thing is, my father observed during a rare moment of insight, "Now that you are not carrying us, we have learned to stand on our own." It has been good for us. As painful as the process was, the hardest lesson for all of us was learning the difference between helping and enabling. I still offered professional financial advice, but I no longer paid their bills. I celebrated their successes, but did not rescue them from the consequences of their choices. I loved them without sacrificing myself in the process. As summer turned to fall and fall to winter, I reflected on how much had changed in less than a year. The previous Christmas had been tense, performative. This Christmas would be simpler, in their modest townhouse, with homemade gifts and honest conversation. What I've learned, I told Sophia over dinner, is that standing up for myself didn't destroy my family. It transformed it into something more authentic. "You gave them the opportunity to grow by refusing to stay small," she observed wisely. Exactly. And I gave myself permission to live my own life, not the one my mother had scripted for me. That script had always ended with me married, living in a house like theirs, having children who would repeat the cycle. Instead, I was building a different story, one where success was measured by peace rather than possessions, where relationships were based on mutual respect rather than obligation, where love did not require the sacrifice of self. The irony was that by setting those boundaries, by refusing to continue paying the mortgage and enabling their unsustainable lifestyle, I had helped my parents find their own strength and independence. My mother was happier working than she had ever been as a homemaker. My father was rediscovering interests and friendships. We were all, in our own ways, finally growing up. Sometimes the greatest act of love is not sacrificing everything, but rather allowing others the dignity of facing reality. Sometimes the strongest families are not those that never break, but those that learn how to rebuild differently after breaking. Sometimes the deepest healing comes only after the most painful truths have been spoken aloud. If you've ever found yourself in a similar situation, trapped in unhealthy family dynamics or carrying burdens that aren't yours to bear, I hope my story offers some encouragement. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary for authentic relationships. Loving someone does not mean sacrificing your well-being for theirs. You can honor your family while still honoring yourself. I would absolutely love to hear about your experiences with family boundaries or financial independence in the comments below. Has anyone else discovered that stepping back actually helped their loved ones step up? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Thank you for listening, and remember, true love uplifts rather than diminishes. Take care of yourselves and each other.